John, everybody.
Right, good afternoon again, one and all. Can everybody hear me in the back? Excellent. Yeah, as Mia said, my name is Don John and I'm the curator of the Colourism Exhibition. As you're all aware, we are living in difficult times, and complexion has joined colour as one of the factors that some use to divide us. That once upon a time, we were called coloured people. It was because many white people thought that it was not nice to be black. And it would hurt our feelings if we were reminded that we were black. Also, let's not forget that we as black people have been conflicted about the merits of our own blackness as a result of our colonial experience. Now, the Americans came at this from a slightly different angle. They came with their one-drop rule, which basically said anyone with a visually discernible trace of African or what used to be called Negro ancestry is simply black, which sat uncomfortably with those who had problems with the black aspects of their heritage. I used to watch my mother as she sat at her dressing table putting on her makeup, and I distinctly remember her using a small blue and white tube called Archer skin lightening cream. At that time, many African women used that as part of their preparation for going out, part of a ritual. I thought little of it at the time, and now I ponder what drove black women to believe that having a lighter skin was a positive thing. No doubt one of the consequences, again, of the colonial influence. Now, the aim of this exhibition, supported by the Arts Council England, is to explore the issue of colorism, which has had a more profound impact on life and culture than many presume. And this issue impacts very differently for black communities, mixed race communities, and white communities. One of the things we've learned is that for a number of reasons, black and brown communities have had real difficulties in grappling with this issue. Now, during the 60s and 70s, whatever complexion you were very often still considered to be black. Do you remember the term, I'm black and I'm proud, all different complexions? Malcolm X, very light-skinned, but still black. Bob Marley, very light-skinned, but still black. Rosa Parks, the lady in the back of the bus, very light-skinned, but still black. And others never considered themselves to be mixed race, coloured, or even brown. Furthermore, all of us of different shades saw each other as one, and that was black, irrespective of what complexion we were. However, beneath this display of unity lurked the ghost of colorism, something that all black communities were very conscious of, and the values that were attached to that. So the different tones of black and blackness, aided and abetted by the desire of Western powers to rationalise aspects of the transatlantic slave trade. And those with a skin tone close to white were considered more acceptable and more beautiful, sometimes because they were physically related to their colonial slave masters. And I'm sure you know what I mean by that. Back in the day, we used to call colorism Shadism, but in more recent times, it has become known as colorism. For those who do not know, Shadism, colorism is the value we attach to people of different complexions. In 1994, almost 30 years ago, I made a film called Shadism, the Politics of Complexion, which examined the issue mainly from a black women's perspective, and we investigated a local chemist in St Mary's selling lightening products, and heard stories from local people of children who tried to bleach their skins because they did not want to be black. And now modern technology has developed a more sophisticated ways of lightening our skins other than bleach. Again, aided and abetted by some parts of the fashion industry. Some argue that colorism was a consequence of black people associating the colour black with negative images and concepts generated by white communities. The double irony is that some of these views are still popular in Africa, the Caribbean, and the Indian subcontinent. You only have to look at Bollywood, which unashamedly demonstrates this. Now, some of you may ask, what is the difference between racism and colorism? Most of us are broadly aware that racism is crudely the discrimination and prejudice against people based on their race and or ethnicity. And colorism is the discrimination and prejudice perpetrated on the basis of someone's complexion. The impact of colonialism, which handed down these perverted beliefs to black people from one generation to the next, sadly has become firmly invested in the beliefs and behaviours of some black people. And such behaviours still exist today. Some argue that colorism is black and brown ethnic communities' own version of racism within our own communities. And that is why we are sensitive about talking about it, because as black people, you see, we rail against racism perpetrated by white people. But how can we do that when sometimes we deploy a kind of racism against people with a lighter or a darker complexion? It's a difficult one to swallow. And again, it's one of the legacies of our own colonial experience. And a lucrative cosmetic industry has been generated as a consequence. And a lot of people are making a lot of money out of this one. It's our hope that this exhibition will stimulate discussion on an issue that is both embarrassing and harmful, and continue that conversation, in my view, in safe places that can only create a greater understanding. These days, younger black people are more exposed to the freedom of not wanting to be categorised exclusively as black. Because you see that, I guess there's a commonality for us to be black because we're all fighting against racism, we're all fighting against discrimination. And we have a common enemy, as it were. But these days, we can also choose other identities that we believe suit us better, because we sometimes think, well, we are not just black, we're other stuff as well as black. And we can identify ourselves as Christians, Muslims, Nigerian, Jamaican, mixed race, Indian, Pakistani, and sometimes white. We can get away with it sometimes. I guess this is where colorism kicks in. But the point I'm making is sometimes our complexion can influence the choices that we make. And the exhibition hopes to stimulate that conversation. Clearly, the manner in which black images have been portrayed in the West tells us that choices are made regarding the selections made about the complexion of people whose origins are from the African continent. And again, fashion and the media have played their part in popularising certain characteristics and imbuing certain complexions with the notions of either beauty and attractiveness, trustworthiness and untrustworthiness. And when you think about, let's say, the fashion industry, there are relatively very few dark-skinned black models because we have our own notions and perceptions of what is beauty based on the European description of what beauty is all about. The exhibition consists of portraits of individuals. As you can see here, we're starting very much from the darkest, working our way all the way around to, some of you may not even see the distinction, all the way around to those who are less dark, all the way around to at the end point where somebody actually could pass. But do they choose to pass? That's the question. Interesting enough, the guy at the end, he's got a bit of German in him, he's got a bit of Jamaican in him, he's got a bit of Chinese in him, but he still sees himself as black. But I guess it's not just a question of how he sees himself, it's a question of how other people see him. And that's a really interesting but difficult issue to grapple with if you feel close to a particular ethnicity, but it's denied by other people.